Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Brian Liddy and I'm here with a read through of the news for you. In what is an incredibly fast news day, I would ask that you stay with us until the end of the show, but go online as soon as we're finished to see if there's been any new developments. But otherwise, I'm sure that our colleague Andrew Wilson will be going into some of these topics in more detail on our full Scottish show this Sunday. So meanwhile, I'll give you today's Ukraine update, day 238. Vladimir Putin has declared martial law in the four provinces of Ukraine where it controls territory after Russian officials warned of a looming Ukrainian assault on the key southern city of Kherson. Putin also ordered an economic mobilization in 8 provinces bordering Ukraine. The measures apply to the southern regions of Krasnodar, Belgorod, Bryansk, Voronezh, Kursk, and Rostov, which are all near Ukraine, and the territories of Crimea and Sevastopol, which Russia seized from Ukraine in 2014. The Russian-installed leader of the occupied Ukrainian region of Kherson said Wednesday that authorities plan a mass transportation of 50 to 60,000 civilians to the left bank of the Dnipro over the next 6 days. Andriy Yermak, chief of staff with the Ukrainian president, described the Russian announcements as a propaganda show. He described it as a rather primitive tactic, given that the armed forces do not fire at Ukrainian cities. This is done exclusively by Russian terrorists. Kyiv has recently introduced a new blackout in the south of the country, leading to speculations that it was preparing for a new major offensive on Kherson. Several Russian missiles have been shot down over Kyiv, its mayor Vitaly Klitschko said, after loud explosions were reported in the centre of the Ukrainian capital. The head of Kryvyi Rih's military administration, Oleksandr Vilkel, said Russia launched rocket fire overnight as on an energy facility, causing serious destruction. Ukrainian forces shot down 13 kamikaze drones over Mykolaiv overnight, according to the region's governor, Vitaly Kim. Finland's main political parties have backed building a fence along parts of the country's border with Russia. Israel's defense minister has reiterated that the country will not sell weapons to Ukraine, despite the request from Kyiv for air defense supplies in the face of Russia's growing use of Iranian-made drones. Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, has said that Russia no longer sees a need to maintain a diplomatic presence in the West. Military advisors from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps were on Ukrainian soil at a Russian military base in occupied Crimea, according to a report in the New York Times. NATO's Secretary General, Jens Stoltenberg, has said Ukraine would receive anti-drone defence systems in coming days. So that's our daily update on the situation in Ukraine. Liz Truss has pledged to maintain the so-called triple lock guarantee on pension increases as she fought back against accusations from Keir Starmer that she is not in charge of the government or the country. Downing Street and the Treasury had for days refused to commit on the triple lock, under which the state pension would rise by whichever is the greatest of inflation, average earnings, or 2.5%, amid a review of spending by Jeremy Hunt, the new Chancellor. Effectively, Liz Truss today at Prime Minister's Questions seems to have enacted a 360-degree turnaround, or that is a U-turn upon another U-turn. But at Prime Minister's Questions on Wednesday, when the SNP's Westminster leader Ian Blackford asked her about pension increases, Truss said, "I honestly don't know what he is talking about, because we have been clear in our manifesto that we will maintain the triple lock, and I am completely committed to it, so is the Chancellor." Ian Blackford tweeted that Liz Truss is a failed Prime Minister who holds the position in name only. He He said that she has no power and accused the Tory party of playing games while they burn the economy and wreak havoc on people's standards of living. He said that people are paying the price for this failed Prime Minister and broken political system. Suella Braverman has been forced to resign as UK Home Secretary, throwing Liz Truss's premiership into further chaos and angering the Tory right. Grant Shapps, the former Transport Secretary, who strongly backed Rishi Sunak in the Conservative leadership race, has been appointed as her replacement. The departed Home Secretary admitted that she had sent an official document, a draft written statement on migration that was due for imminent publication, from her personal email to a fellow MP as part of policy engagement, which is against the rules. However, her departure is a further serious blow to Truss's authority, coming as a growing number of Tory MPs threatened to rebel in a fracking vote tabled by Labour, even though they could lose the Tory whip after the government made it a confidence issue. In a brutal resignation letter, which contrasted her actions with those of Truss, Braverman wrote, "Pretending we haven't made mistakes, carrying on as if everyone can't see that we have made them, and hoping that things will magically come right is not serious politics. I have made a mistake. I accept responsibility. I resign. It is obvious to everyone that we are going through a tumultuous time. I have concerns about the direction of this government. Not only have we broken key pledges that were promised to our voters, but I have had serious concerns about this government's commitment to honouring manifesto commitments." The SNP's Home Affairs spokesperson, Stuart MacDonald's MP, said, "Not even 2 months into the job, and Liz Truss has already lost a Chancellor and a Home Secretary. At this rate, her cabinet will be empty by Christmas." He went on to say, while the Home Secretary's departure will be welcome news to all of those disgusted by her Rwanda deportation dreams, it doesn't change the fact that this entire government is rotten to the core, and that with the busted flush Liz Truss in power, it matters very little who sits in the cabinet. Inflation in the UK has risen I'll start that again. Inflation in the UK has risen above 10% for the second time this year, as households come under pressure from the sharpest annual rise in food prices for more than 40 years amid the cost of living crisis. The Office for National Statistics, the ONS, said the Consumer Prices Index rose to 10.1% in September, returning to double digits after a slight dip to 9.9% in August. The figure was last higher in 1982. City economists had forecast a slightly smaller rise to 10%. Soaring prices for food and drink were the biggest driver behind the latest cost of living increase, with an annual rise of almost 15%, the fastest annual jump since April 1980, as the price of bread and cereals, meat, milk, cheese, and eggs shot up. The September inflation figure is crucial as it is the one used to uprate pensions and benefits for the following April, Chancellor of the Exchequer Jeremy Hunt said. "We have acted decisively to protect households and businesses from significant rises in their energy bills this winter, with the government's energy price guarantee holding down peak inflation." The SNP's Shadow Chancellor, Alison Thewlis MP, said, "The fault of this crisis lies squarely with Number 10. Liz Truss's premiership has been the unmitigated disaster, driving the economy to the brink of a recession and leaving the housing market and pensions on the verge of crashing." She went on to say, "It's time for the Prime Minister to pledge her commitment to securing the triple lock on pensions and to increase benefits in line with inflation rather than wages." Research released today by Ireland's Economic and Social Research Institute, the ESRI, shows reductions in UK to EU good trade by 16% and trade from the EU to UK by 20%, relative to the scenario in which Brexit had not occurred. The comparison scenario is that trade with the UK should have been expected to grow at a similar pace to that of the same products being traded with other EU partner countries around the world. Although goods trade between the EU and UK recovered most of its previous level in value terms following the sharp fall in the early months of 2021, this recovery leaves it well below the levels that would have been expected if it had performed on a comparable level with other trade partners. Commenting on the research, Pete Wishart MP said, "Despite overwhelmingly rejecting it, Westminster has imposed its deeply damaging Brexit on Scotland against our will, wreaking havoc on our economy and crippling our hard-working exporters. This shows clearly that Brexit doesn't work." He went on to say, "The economic vandalism of the Tories, which Labour's Keir Starmer now fully supports, knows no bounds across Scotland's businesses already struggling because of Brexit red tape. But Liz Truss's premiership has seen the pound tank, bills soar, and forced unprecedented intervention from the Bank of England to protect UK pensions." He went on to say, "Scotland has also lost the economic and social impact of those from the EU who would have chosen to live and work here, but have been turned off by the horrific rhetoric from the UK government, who have pulled up the drawbridge to our European neighbours. While independent Ireland enjoys full access to the EU single market," he said, "customs union and freedom of movement Scotland is held back by Westminster governments. That's why we need the full powers of independence and why the Scottish Government is committed to giving the people of Scotland that choice." The SNP has warned that the UK Government are set to undermine devolution and the powers of the Scottish Parliament with their retained EU law bill set to be passed later this year. The SNP's Cabinet Office spokesperson, Brendan O'Hara MP, warned the bill, which has been blasted by Scottish Government ministers and organisations like the TUC and RSPB, risked key environmental and food regulations as well as workers' rights that have protected the interests of Scots for decades. Moving a debate in Westminster Hall on the impact of the bill on the Scottish devolution settlement, Mr O'Hara spoke of an all-out attack on Scotland's democratic parliament and said that, that only independence could protect Scotland's rights. Commenting, Brendan O'Hara MP said, "Once again, due to a botched Brexit deal forced on Scotland by Westminster, we face an all-out attack on Scotland's democratic parliament in the form of a blatant power grab, and with it, a stripping back of vital regulations that have protected everything from Scottish food standards to workers' rights for over 50 years." He continued, "Scotland should not be forced to accept the reality that Westminster can simply drag us under and completely undermine our Parliament in Edinburgh, but without the full powers of independence, that is exactly what will continue to happen. Without a clean break from Westminster, chlorinated chicken won't be the only thing leaving a bad taste in people's mouths as the drive to undermine Scotland continues." He went on to say, "The Scottish Government should not be left to constantly mitigate the damage done to our environment, food standards and workers' rights as a result of Westminster control." With 1 year to go until the Scottish Government's proposed date for an independence referendum mandated by the people of Scotland at last year's election, a statement from First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said that the very fact that the Westminster parties all refused to respect the rights of the people of Scotland to decide their own future shows that they know that their case for continued Westminster control is collapsing like a house of cards. The First Minister insisted that the Scottish Government's renewed prospectus for independence makes a case for an economy that works for everyone, dedicated to helping people live happier, more fulfilling lives. The, the more detail about Scotland's future as an independent nation, which the Scottish Government provides, the more questions those advocating for Scotland remaining within the UK have to answer about what Scotland's future under Westminster's control. Miss Sturgeon said, If Scotland were independent right now, there is no chance that we would look at today's UK and believe it was in our interests to be ruled by Westminster. We would never choose to be in a travesty of a partnership which routinely ignores our democratic wishes, a country with an underperforming economy and growing inequality. In short, a political system which is dragging us down the wrong path. She continued, independence is no guarantee of success, but it is a guarantee that we will get rid of Tory governments we don't vote for good, and no one will ever take better decisions about our future than the people living here. She went on to say, and as our analysis has shown, comparable European independent countries have national incomes that are, on average, more than £10,000 per person higher than Scotland under Westminster control. Being independent offers us the power to take better decisions and use our extraordinary resources that will help us match that success. She went on to say, a year today, I want people in Scotland to be able to go to the polls and choose that better future. And I am certain that when they are given that choice, they will vote to become independent. Scotland is a clean, green energy machine, according to the latest in a series of papers produced by the Scottish Government on the economic case for independence. The paper outlined how Scotland is an energy-rich nation, with both onshore wind and renewables such as hydrogen forming the bedrock of an independent Scotland. Estimates show that wind power can generate £2.8 billion and 17,000 more jobs in Scotland, whilst hydrogen power would create between 70,000 and 300,000 jobs and generate up to £25 billion a year by 2045. The paper also highlighted how Scotland is already leading the way in other renewable energy sources such as tidal energy and carbon capture and storage technology. Commenting, SNP MSP Gillian Martin said, Scotland is a renewable energy powerhouse and clean energy could form the backbone of the economy of an independent Scotland. We are already leading the way in producing clean energy. This year alone, Scotland produced a record amount of renewable electricity. Ms Martin added, for too long, Scotland's vast resources have been squandered by UK governments past and present. That is why an independent Scotland would set up building a new Scotland fund, which would secure major investment to ensure a smooth, just transition from oil and gas to renewable energy. She went on to say, the past year has shown the importance of accelerating our transition to clean energy, and Scotland can be at the forefront of that. Donald Trump's assertions of executive and attorney-client privilege over certain documents that the FBI seized from his Mar-a-Lago resort appeared to lack evidence sufficient for him to rule in the former US president's favour, the special master reviewing the resort suggested on Tuesday. The special master, senior US District Court Judge Raymond Dearie, complained during a conference call in the case that the log of documents Trump is trying to withhold from the Justice Department did not give enough information about the validity of the privilege claims. Dearie encouraged Trump's lawyers to elaborate on why they believe the documents could be excluded from the Justice Department's criminal investigation into the potential willful retention of national defence information, removal of the government's records, and obstruction of justice. He said, it's a little perplexing as I go through the log, Dearie said. What's the expression, where's the beef? I need some beef. The discussion on the conference call was the latest development in the ongoing review that is examining whether any of the 11,000 documents without classified markings seized from Mar-a-Lago are legally privileged and cannot be used by prosecutors in the criminal investigation. The conference call touched only on privileged disagreements concerning a small subset of the seized materials that remain, for now, in the Special Master's purview. The Justice Department has since appealed the appointment of the Special Master in its entirety. The dispute could foreshadow what could be a messy argument between Trump's lawyers seeking to limit what documents can be used in the criminal inquiry and the Justice Department, which is trying to keep as many records in play. On the call, Deary specifically asked Trump's lawyers to give him a better sense of how one document, for instance, could both be subject to executive privilege, a designation applying to presidential records, and simultaneously be a non-governmental personal document. The number of people waiting 2 years for a scheduled hospital appointment has significantly reduced, helping ease pressure on the NHS ahead of the winter. This follows intensive work from health boards to clear backlogs caused by the pandemic. The national target to clear 2 years inpatient waits in most specialties by the end of September was set in summer to address the impact of the pandemic on long waiting times for planned care, forgive me. New figures show that by the end of September, 60%, that's 18 out of 30 people, of all inpatient specialties had fewer than 10 patients waiting for over 2 years for treatment. The Scottish Government continues to work closely with health boards to clear remaining waits as soon as possible, with a specific focus on specialties and areas where there are larger amounts of people waiting. This includes maximising and reallocating NHS Golden Jubilee University National Hospital's capacity, that's a new mobile operating theatre at Strathcrow, to support long waiting patients in Grampian, and the development of a new urology hub in Fife. New national treatment centres opening in NHS Fife, Forth Valley and Highland next year will also create significant additional capacity to treat patients in orthopaedics. Health Secretary Hamza Yousaf said, "It is through the dedication and resilience of NHS staff that we have been able to clear a significant amount of 2 year inpatient waits. This is a positive step forward in our recovery from the pandemic and will ease pressure on the NHS over winter." And our final story for the night: a trio of Islamic glass fragments discovered by archaeologists at Cleverlock Castle near Dumfries in the late 1990s has inspired a collaborative community project to unravel the story of their origins and recreate the original object, a medieval Islamic glass drinking beaker. The first and only glass of its kind to be found at an archaeological site in Scotland, it is believed that the original vessel would have been made in modern-day Syria, Iraq or Egypt during the 12th and 13th centuries, all of which were important centres of Islamic glassmaking. The fragments are inscribed with part of the Arabic word for eternal, likely used as one of the 99 names for Allah, which suggests that it could be an extract from the Quran, although tiny in size, at 3.1 centimetres by 2.8 centimetres. The two fragments together are smaller than a ping pong ball and give clues to Scotland's contact with the wider world during the medieval period. Stefan Sagrot, archaeologist and senior cultural resources advisor from Historic Environment Scotland, said that discovering Islamic glass from the 13th century in a Scottish castle is an absolutely astounding find. Now, almost a quarter of a century after the fragments were discovered, they are back in the spotlight at the heart of a community project called Eternal Connections, forgive me, which has sparked discussion and learning around the heritage of Scotland's Muslim communities. Working with 3D models, creative practitioners and community groups, Eternal Connections used cutting-edge scientific analysis and research data to forge new ways of understanding the contemporary and historic connections between Scotland and Islam. Forgive me. Excuse me. Stirlingshire-based visual artist Alice Martin researched contemporaneous medieval Islamic glass, and worked with a team of experts from Historic Environment Scotland. This won't go away. I'm so sorry. Alice Martin, Stirlingshire-based visual artist Alice Martin researched contemporaneous medieval Islamic glass. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure the water's helping this evening. Stirlingshire-based visual artist Alice Martin researched contemporaneous medieval Islamic glass and worked with a team of experts from HES who used state-of-the-art fragment techniques to analyse the fragments and produce 3D data. I'm so sorry about this. This enabled Martin to create a 3D model digital reconstruction of the glass fragments to show what the beaker might have looked like originally. Well, that's it for this evening, you'll be pleased to hear. And before I go, I just want to remind you that at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. So, to everyone who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, we thank you very much. Our programmes will always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 per month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of adding 10,000 new subscribers to enable us to employ staff. Forgive me. To make more programmes. Good night. Thank you for watching and thank you for your patience with me.